I respectfully podcast. This is like a pop-up pod. You feel me? This is like impromptu. I mean, not really impromptu, because we still had the same schedule. So we want to talk about Bill Maher, who has been crazy out of pocket lately. And honestly, I feel like he needs just a black fist to check his jaw real quick, and just like all talk aside, all discussion aside. But that's not gonna happen. So we're just gonna talk about it. I realize that I keep watching his show because it's the only political show that I have left. The Daily Show is done, right? I mean, it's not done, but as far as I'm concerned, it's I can't really get with
Trevor
um
Noah.
Trevor Noah. Like I mean, he's not really my vibe, so I can't really get with Trevor Noah. The show is still good, still a great show. I just can't get with it. I miss Jon Stewart. I miss his commentary was a lot better. It was funnier. It was harder hitting. It was just better, in
Hmm.
my opinion. In my opinion.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I realized like Bill Maher is the only show I have left where I can watch some politics, and I can watch people talk about politics in a very unfettered manner.
Hmm.
Um, but over since, like I said, since Obama's administration, he's gone further and further to the center. And he's kind of in lockstep with the DNC and a lot of, it just gets very corny. It's like very predictable. He spent the last 2 years, two or three seasons, probably the whole 4 years of Trump's candidacy, just talking about Trump. Every episode was about Trump. Trump is this, Trump is that. And I'm like, okay, we know Trump is bad, but what are the Democrats going to do about it? Well, I mean, are we planning on having any other conversations about politics, about labor, about economy, about society? Is there anything else to talk about? So it just got annoying. So now at this point, and then I stopped watching it when he had his whole nigger debacle, when he said nigger on the show, real tongue in cheek,
Hmm.
and he thought it was cool. And me and Gary actually touched on that on a previous episode. So I'm actually going to edit all of this together,
Okay.
and we'll have one Bill Maher, uh, Camille Foster um, episode.
That dude I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
telling you
yeah,
about,
yeah, yeah. That dude.
bro.
So
How much of his focus on Trump was a response to Trump being Trump? You know what I'm saying? Like because it was like it was at a point it was like every week Trump was doing something that was like, yo, who would have thought that a politician could get away with
oh yeah,
the
yeah.
stuff that he was getting
It
away
was
with?
definitely. I'm not saying that he should have never talked about Trump, but he
Okay.
just became one of those liberal DNC talking heads where they have nothing else to talk about but Trump for a whole hour. Like every topic was Trump. Trump
Right.
is bad. Trump is horrible. Trump did this the other day. Trump did that the other day. Trump tweeted this. Trump tweeted that. It's just like, okay, we get it. Like I'm coming to this show because I wanna talk politics. I want to talk what's going on. I want to talk what are the policy initiatives, the legislative agendas, the proposals that are out there to
So
address real problems. I don't want to hear about Trump. I'm sorry.
right. So I'm saying, how many does his guest provide a counterbalance to that?
Well,
Like, do
he
they?
dictates the agenda.
True.
So if all the topics are about Trump, they
You
essentially
got to talk
end
about
up
Trump.
talking about Trump.
Okay.
You know. But yeah, so let me just play. I'll play this clip,
Okay.
and this is Bill Maher and Charlemagne.
Oh, that hurt. I heard
Yeah,
that.
this is wild.
That was cringeworthy.
Yeah, yeah, it really was. So this is Bill Maher and Charlemagne. So here we go. Wait, I don't have that kind of money, so I can't even put myself in that mindset. Okay. So they were very cute dogs. You heard the pictures of them? They were. Yeah. Okay. So last month, the Biden administration said, speaking of money, they want to study reparations. Study it. Compensate descendants of slaves for unpaid labor by their ancestors. Jen Psaki, the press spokesman, said, "We'll see what happens in the legislative process." I'm curious where you are on this issue. I mean, it's
there's a collective guilt that's asking individuals to recompense. I think that's how we would frame that.
Listen, I think reparations has to happen for Black people. You know what I mean? Because slavery was America's original sin. And I really don't think no good is going to come to this country until they atone for their original sin, which was slavery. I mean, my ancestors literally built this country for free. So when you see all of this money being thrown around, you know, $27 trillion in national debt, $1.7 trillion for failed F-35 fighter jets.
$500,000 for dogs.
$500,000 for fucking dogs. It's like, if you're Black in this country, you have to be like, well, what the hell? What's up with us? You know what I mean? So for me personally,
but again,
I don't even see what the issue is. I don't know.
The issue is that that's the collective guilt, but individual white people are saying, I didn't do it, and my ancestors didn't even do it, and you are not your ancestors. That's
I'm a descendant of those ancestors.
I know, but okay.
Hey, listen, when a debt is old, a debt is old. Period.
But you've got a lot of money, so you say you should get more.
Should I get more?
Well, no, you should get a check.
Yes, I'm 97% West African, born in Charleston, South Carolina, so I should definitely get a check. But if it's to the point where, you know what, you make too much money, we don't think you deserve it, cool, give it to somebody who needs it. But to act like Black people in this country don't deserve reparations is absolutely nuts to me. Hey, this is what I want. Put it like this, America, just treat Black people like they're F-35 fighter jets. You had $1.7 trillion to throw at that bullshit. Throw it at the people who actually built this country. But I don't see how anybody.
But again, you didn't build this country. So what? You personally did.
So what? I'm a descendant.
But I'm saying we can't write a check to a ghost. You know.
Why not?
Why not? Because
especially when the ghost's descendants are still.
Well, that's a descendant.
Listen, let me ask you a question. How do you right the wrong of slavery?
Well, I mean, I think reparations can come in many forms.
Why not? Cash is king. It's America.
No, I agree. I mean, I think reparations can come in many forms. So we should be spending much more on the schools that serve Black children. We should be spending much more on the infrastructure in Black and predominantly Black communities. We should be doing all sorts of things to close the opportunity gap, which is enormous and which we've done a terrible job closing. A debt is owed, and that's one of the ways you repay it.
Simple as that.
The problem I have with the reparations conversation is the questions you were asking a moment ago. It's practically a non-starter. I mean, in terms of practicality. No one's going to agree on the terms. No one's going to agree exactly on the eligibility criteria. Nobody's going to agree on the amount. And it's politically very unpopular. And while we're talking about something that I don't think is passable, and that's why Obama didn't talk about it.
Why is it not passable?
What?
Why is it not passable?
Look at public opinion polls. It's just not going to get done. And that's not about the merits. That's about the appeal out there. And in the meantime, there's so much we can and should be doing that could be called reparations about the debt we owe.
Well, let's change the name. Call it economic equity package. Whatever it is, as he said,
say Obamacare help Black and brown people way more than white people. Obviously, all people can sign up for Obamacare, but that is the practical effect of it. Is a form of reparations. You know, I mean, there's a tax that everybody pays. I don't think it's capped. You know, rich people pay more. And those kind of.
All right, so I wanted to play that part. Hopefully it was audible.
Yeah, it was audible.
Okay. Yeah, so the part where he said that Obamacare was reparations, could be considered reparations.
That's a non-starter.
Which is a talking point that Obama started.
It's a bad one.
Yeah, it's a talking point that Obama started, and it's a horrible talking point. It's a horrible approach to the messaging around reparations, and it also is a very disingenuous way to try to prop up his Obamacare policy. And it's pretty offensive to
It's dismissive.
Black
It's
people.
To
even cloak your policy in reparations like that, when you have no interest in providing reparations and have been vocal about your disinterest in doing it. To cloak your policy in something like that and use us in that way is, I mean, it's pretty egregious to the point where yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
I mean, first thing, I saw how when Bill Maher had pressed Charlemagne and asked him different questions, right? And he like the argument started to break down. He was like, "Well, then who should get it,
Right.
or who's eligible?" And you didn't build it yourself.
Right.
Yeah, true. But also, you got to ask yourself, what about post-slavery, when we had built up our own communities
Yep.
and you came and took it from us? Then, when you allow other people to come into the country and get free land, and they were taught how to farm, they were given subsidies. We didn't have a. Nobody said, "What about black people? How would they feel about this?"
Yep.
So my question is, how can we turn around and have the same care when, yeah, you, Bill Maher, didn't own slaves. However, what about the people that did come over here in the 1920s, and we got record of that, and they got land? Can we also say, well, let's look at that part of time too?
Yep. I mean, and
1920, 1930.
that's what MLK was talking about before he
Yeah,
was
he really
assassinated.
wasn't speaking about slavery in general, but it could all be addressed. And why would we let this go on for another generation? And the debt is the debt. Similar to if you buy a house, I don't care where you go in the world, you still owe that mortgage. The debt is the debt.
Yep.
So if we're going to tell me and you that the debt is the debt for anything we do, credit cards, car payments, mortgages, student loans, the debt is the debt, then the debt has to be the debt too for us then. And you
Yep.
haven't even begun to pay it. Don't tell me about poverty programs. I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me about healthcare programs for everybody. I don't want to hear it. It
Yep.
was specific to us. I don't remember anybody else, nobody, having to forfeit health insurance policy because somebody died, and then the health insurance entity say, "Hey, we don't
Right.
know."
Right. I don't
This is-
know.
my
I
grandmother,
don't know.
my grandfather died in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
Because now his wife, who's verifiably his wife since 1956, in 92, she didn't get none of his pension, zero.
Mm.
They took it all back. He worked for 40 years. She got nothing. This was in 92.
Mm.
Policy,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and what they said was her name was not on the policy, despite her name being on the merits certificate since 1956. Help me out with that.
So and what was the rationale again behind that? What was like?
Her name wasn't on the policy. He didn't add her name to the actual policy, but
Yeah.
it was his wife. She had the like, look, I'm his wife, but they kept the money.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's a long history up until now of specifically anti-black racism in this country. And when I say long history, I don't mean a long qualitative. I'm talking about quantitative, substantive policy, at least 3 to 4 centuries of substantive policy targeted directly at black people to loot us of our wealth, loot us of our property, loot us of our access, and zero has been done about it.
Right.
And this is the thing, because Bill Maher said this thing where he said, I took some notes. Bill Maher said in the beginning that you didn't actually go through slavery yourself. So what are you supposed to give it to ghosts? So everyone else has received reparations except for black people. And so, I mean, eventually I'm going to start. Well, I mean, I typically don't have conversations about reparations with other races because, I mean, it's just a non-starter. I mean, nobody takes it seriously, not because it's not a serious topic, but because nobody takes black people seriously as a collective, and nobody really wants to do anything compensatory for us. But anyway, he made a statement. Bill Maher, one of the first things he said was, "You didn't do the work yourself.
Right.
So what are you supposed to give it to ghosts?" But Charlemagne his response didn't really address it, right? He said
he kind of broke down.
Yeah, because he doesn't see Charlemagne is not someone who Charlemagne is. He cares about these issues.
he
I
does.
appreciate what he represents in these spaces, and he
Right.
keeps it a buck, you know, to the
He
best of his
does.
ability. But Charlemagne is not. He's not an academic. He's not someone who has studied and researched this stuff. He's not even someone who can properly articulate the substantive side of the argument, right?
Mm,
So when you're making statements like, "Oh well, you all weren't the ones in slavery." Well, we weren't the ones in slavery, but we were the ones who went through the Reconstruction period,
right.
where when we were freed from slavery and we were able to, you know, kind of build up some wealth.
Hmm.
We had it stolen from us outright. Um, Millions upon millions. We had banks. You know, you had stuff like the
Hmm.
Freedmen Bank, and then you had, like I mentioned earlier, you had policies. You had racism, specifically anti-black racism, codified in policy, and
Hmm.
then carried out. And through slavery, after slavery, during Reconstruction, after Reconstruction, when we got to Jim Crow, and then fast forward to now,
Hmm.
this was a whole span of time where reparations would be due. And it wouldn't just be due because of slavery, it would be due because of what happened post slavery, right?
Right.
During and post.
Right.
And the thing is that the other guy, and this is the other point I wanted to speak on. The first point was Bill Maher saying, well, why should you deserve it? Because Jewish people got reparations. The argument that they make is that uh, they were still alive when they received, like, these were people that actually went through the Holocaust.
Right.
But in my opinion, that's neither here nor there, because the compensation was made for 6 years of something happening, right?
Hmm.
Just so happens that that 6 years was more recent than Jim Crow, Reconstruction, and slavery. Just so happens that it was only 6 years, and so it's a smaller amount. They ain't got nothing to do with us, right? And it has nothing to do with the justification behind reparations. But he said what he said. He's Jewish. He received reparations, but he doesn't want us to get it. But so that was my first point. The second point is, I say that.
So you can draw a straight line from then to now, right?
Right.
There's a cause and effect for everything that happens on the planet,
Yep.
right?
And
So,
go ahead.
so if we built this together and we was equally treated, you would have to think that opposition in this country would be different right now. If we
Right.
had a chance to build it, there would be a real black middle class and not, a, a lot of outliers going on, or
Right.
people with
Exactly.
good government jobs or something, but you really
Exactly.
don't have any wealth. There's no real sustainability within family structures and stuff. And like
And
I
and
believe that if you
that's a
could
key
draw that
word.
strict, huh?
That's a key word, sustainability. I
Right,
just wanted to point that out. Right.
right.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
If you can draw that straight line from what happened to what to our current state, then the argument is made based on me being here because I'm sitting here. That's why I deserve it because I wouldn't be here if somebody hadn't brought me here.
Right.
So when you say things like who we gonna get the money to Ghost? Now you get the money to me
Right.
because you didn't pay the people then. You owe me
Right.
now.
Right.
It's like
Exactly.
I am
Exactly.
them, they are me.
And it's not even in some, I mean, also, I mean, yes, I am we, they are me, we are them. All of that is legit. But that doesn't really push the needle when it comes to policy.
Right.
And so that argument, although it is legit, it doesn't move
Mm-hmm.
on policy, because but you can also draw a straight line between them and us in a quantitative manner, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can literally draw a line between the money in slavery and the money now.
Mm-hmm.
You have insurance companies who built their fundamental revenues generated in slavery,
Mm-hmm.
because Wall Street started on the slave auction block, right?
Right. Right.
And then you can also draw a line between the insurance that was put on these bodies, because those were the first insurance policies,
Yep.
right? So insurance companies, Warren Buffett's portfolio, a big chunk of it is in insurance,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
There are billions of dollars that were generated off of our dead ancestors, and not even in the sense of, oh, well, we took their land and, you know, so we owe them, even though that would also be legitimate. But no, we literally made money off of their dead bodies. Then we made money off of their alive bodies by doing the free labor. Then we made money by obstructing and pretty much putting up an economic embargo between us and the Black community to make sure that they don't have access to any of this wealth that we've generated off of them, right? So then you fast forward to now, and when we start talking about reparations, we have white people who say things on this show, like Bill Maher and this other guy, that say things. And the other guy, this is the next point I wanted to touch on. The other guy, he came in and said, well, oh, it's a non-starter. Charlemagne said, why? Well, it's a non-starter because look at the public opinion polls. No one supports it. So how about instead of doing that, we pivot to benign neglect. Benign neglect is a policy of which we will deal with other things, target other people, and then hopefully Black people fall somewhere in there. So we'll have like an agenda to, you know, invest some money in underprivileged schools and underprivileged
Yeah, I'm
neighborhoods.
talking about trickle down reparations.
Right, trickle down reparations, basically. That's essentially what it is. So what we'll do is we'll do some trickle down reparations. And what we'll do is, what was the other thing? It's kind of like the opportunity zone thing, right? So once we gentrify these areas and we move the fuck in, and now we're like, all right, well, it's still technically underprivileged because, you know, that's the category we have it in.
You know, because some of them are still here.
Right, exactly. So instead of us actually giving direct compensation to Black people, which we would never want to do, we can actually start to have a conversation about just investing in underprivileged communities. Let's invest in the schools. Let's invest in the neighborhoods. Let's have you know, like programs for the community and whatnot, right?
Sounds like charity. It doesn't work.
But and the thing is, I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's not reparations. So a lot of times what Democrats do is they will cloak progressive policy, shit that they should be doing anyway.
Right.
They'll cloak it in, oh, well, this is our Black policy.
Right.
Well, I feel like, you know, actually stopping the divestment in urban communities should just be a regular progressive policy. I don't think that needs to be a Black thing. I think you should just do that regardless. So what they do is they put this, they cloak themselves in Black people, and they push it and they brand it with us, but it's really just a progressive policy, right?
Right.
So you got this guy who comes in and says, oh, it's a non-starter because of public opinion. And this is the last point I wanted to make. Whenever white people or off-white people or just not Black people start talking about reparations, they want to talk about how complex it is. Oh, it's so complex. How do we even figure out who's Black and who's not Black? I mean, there are so many just different nuances of this. How do we track the money? How do we do how do we capture the data? Listen, we and you work in IT, you know this. You got your own LLC where you know, talk about data analytics, AI. We are literally in the most innovative data analytics, big data era that this world has ever experienced. But when it comes to providing compensation to niggas, suddenly, well, we just don't have the data. We have no idea how to capture it.
What I'm saying is the same country that went to the moon can't provide payments to people.
Like, suddenly it's like, well, I mean, that's too complex. I don't.
But we can go to the moon and back.
Right.
We could
we can literally we can capture so much data when people are just driving their cars. We can capture enough data that you don't even have to drive your car anymore because the car already knows where to go. But you can't capture enough data to figure out how much money you owe us.
we can see the emblem on your fit. It had 70 miles off the Bay Bridge. And this was 1970s that they had this technology. You be able to see, yo, my uncle is special forces, military. He said, yo, I can see the emblem on somebody's fit had 70 miles off the Bay Bridge back in the 70s. They had that level of technology then.
So he was working with one of those government, because that seems like federal.
Yeah, that's
That's
the military. United States military can see the emblem. Yo, you can check the time on my watch, 30 miles above the surface of the earth. Come on, man.
Right.
Let's not act like that. You can't.
Like stop playing with me.
Just say you don't want to.
Right. And that's my final point, is that people always talk about, they always think of all kinds of excuses for not addressing it. And it really all comes down to this. It's not politically palatable. It's a political non-starter for the sole reason that people hate niggas. And I really need people to understand that. I need Black people to understand, because a lot of times Black people don't even understand that. They get caught up in the same conversations. It's like,
well, you know that.
Yes, it is kind of hard to figure it out. No,
you don't
like your Black ass. That's
you
it.
You don't have 100% of Black people believe in reparations either. So it's like 75% of us believe in it, which is like,
internalized racism, bro. Niggas will follow whatever like the popular opinion is or whatever. But yeah, at the end of the day, 3 major points. Everybody else got reparations. The only reason you don't want to give it to us because we Black. Second point, Democrats have a tendency to avoid reparations, or to avoid a serious conversation about reparations, because they want to pivot to benign neglect and start talking about all these broad policy initiatives and proposals that have nothing to do with us. And then 3, Bill Maher, we gotta get him the fuck out of here. I mean, a lot of people don't really listen to him anyway. But at this point, I mean, he has spent at least the better part of this season trying to attack anti-Black racism. And he keeps doing it over and over again. And at this point, it's getting a little bit, like you said, it's cringe-worthy, bro.
That dude, that brother they had on there, I was like, yo, where did they find this dude at? Like, what's he talking about? You remember the guy I told you about that was?
Yeah, Camille.
Yeah.
Camille,
I was like, bro, like,
that's a frat brother of mine. Like, we went to school together.
He went to Maryland.
He went to Maryland, yeah. So we used to have conversations about, we used to bump heads all the time, And I would be like in a room full of Black kings, you feel me? My frat brothers. And I'm the only one in there really pushing back on them and saying like, yo, you are crazy out of pocket right now. You need to tighten up, bro. Like the way you're talking about Black people it's outrageous.
But isn't it amazing that those are people that always get the platform to speak on it?
But
like, I've never heard anybody else speak against their own people getting something. Like, that's like you on your birthday telling your girl, like, nah, you know what? I really don't want nothing. You ain't gotta get me nothing.
Right. Don't give me nothing, babe.
Give me nothing.
That's disrespectful. You disrespecting me by buying me gifts. I don't want nothing.
He'd be like, yo, something wrong with you?
Hey. Bro, like we said before, man, I feel like Black people are literally the only race of people that are, it's so easy to find members of our community to throw us all under the bus. It's way too easy.
You know what I would like to do with this particular platform? We could get a diverse group of people in here and have that discussion. Like,
I would like doing that. I would like doing that. Yeah.
Make that one of the parts of we can be like, hey, I want to discuss it, but from a detail, like from a substantive standpoint.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about it from that point, and not all the platitudes, not all of the feel good language, some of the brass tacks.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm down with that. I here's the thing. I have no problem with diversity in participation and diversity in thought. I just don't want what I don't like is they love to pit Black people up against other people.
Right.
Instead of having multiple voices build together with Black people.
Mhm.
Typically, when Black people are involved with other voices and diverse voices, we're
Mhm.
the ones helping them build. So it's basically just slavery all over again. It's just like Black people get nothing out of it, and then we help them build. But rarely do Black people have platforms where we invite people to help us build.
Right.
You know, um, so yeah, I mean, I'm down for that. I got a
No, I'm
couple
saying
people.
like not a discussion of us against or you bring two brothers who don't care about it, and you. I'm talking
Right,
about people who just want to hear about it in more of a detailed fashion, have a real
right,
conversation, not a whole lot of well, he a coon. No.
right,
We not here for none of that. We
right.
here for
Exactly.
a real educated discussion. It's not about I'm not gonna get loud. No, nobody get loud. Nobody talking all crazy like yo.
Yeah,
You know the facts. With the facts in your face, what do you think?
right. Yeah, I mean, because people don't really hear the facts too much.
They
They
don't.
don't hear the facts too much, you know. So, and especially when it comes to Black people, people
And
hear a bunch of propaganda. They hear a
I would
bunch
like
of
to hear people that's because a lot of times it's sort of like preaching to the choir a little bit if it's just us. People like us, of course, we feel like that. But I like to talk to people who care about or say or profess that they care about our issues.
right,
And then in the face of that, what do you think about our thought about it and
right,
um, our analysis of it? What do you think about what we're saying? Not what the media said, not some, not a whole lot of feel good language and platitudes. No, this is the detail. What do you feel about it? Based
right.
on what I'm saying, not what the media say, not what
Yeah,
we don't deserve it because it's disrespectful to me to think that I need that it's disrespectful to me because like your man was saying, I don't need a handout or a handout. Like yo,
right.
first of all, every company goes to the government for business. Like
Yep.
you don't think Verizon has lobbyists because they don't want something from the government. Like come on, like let's
Yeah, listen, when it comes
stop.
to handouts, they have beat this in the Black folks' heads for so long that we shouldn't be taking handouts and we shouldn't desire handouts. And I've seen people that really need a handout, like they need some government assistance,
Right,
and they'll be like, no, I ain't taking that handout, nigga. You paid for it.
right,
All those times where they took taxes out of your check, you paid it. You paid for it. This ain't
right,
a handout,
right.
right? So like, but they beat that in their heads for so long.
I had that same feeling too. Yeah, I had the same feeling, and everybody's like, no, you that's your money that you paid
That
for.
they're just
You
giving you your
chill.
money back,
Right.
right? So, um, and then it was one more thing. So that was the other thing that I forgot to touch on. Another reason why reparations is a non-starter, and not even just reparations. I mean, let's be frank. We're talking about any policy directly targeting Black people. It's a
Hmm.
non-starter because our society, i.e., white people, right? Even before it became this diverse, white
Hmm.
people had a long history of challenging, pushing back, or making policies a non-starter when they found out that Black people would benefit from it. And not even policies specifically for Black people. I'm talking about they would push back against policies that everyone would benefit from.
Hmm.
And when they found out that it benefited Black people, they'd be like, "Oh shit, no, I ain't supporting that. Hold on. I mean, I know me and my family could catch a W off of this policy, but I'd rather sacrifice the W in order for Black people to catch an L, right?
Like, I mean,
It's a long history of that, and that's why,
I mean, look at the GI Bill, the Homestead Act,
right?
Social Security. Come on, man.
Yep.
Like, how can you, with that information in your face, how can you argue? It, this way, I think Charlemagne should have been able to push back. Like, oh well, what about the GI Bill? What about the Homestead Act? What about Social Security? Like, he should have been hit
Yeah,
those
but
three
he
off the
can't. But
park and say, hey,
he can't speak. He can't speak to that, man. I mean, I saw. I posted on my website, the People's Think Tank. Shameless plug. ThePeoplesThinkTank.com. But yeah, I posted on there. Probably about I want to say like 2 years ago now.
mm-hmm,
There was a recent study I mean, it's 2 years ago now, but that's pretty recent when it comes to this topic. But there was a study that said that found that housing discrimination, specifically against Black people, is at Jim Crow levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about Jim Crow levels in the 21st century, well into the 21st century, right? And that's the thing that kind of pisses me off is like I was talking to my stepfather not too long ago, and he was like, "Well, there just needs to be more research done, and it needs to be more documentation of this stuff." And I was like, "Dad, look, like I've been in these policy spaces for some time now,
Mm-hmm.
and I've gone to all of the conferences and all of the Black policy conferences and all types of stuff on the Hill. And, I mean, this isn't like low level, low key stuff. This is like front and center stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They have all of the analysis and the data to prove that all of this stuff has gone on, has persisted to this current day, like around housing discrimination, around employment discrimination, around loan discrimination,
Mm-hmm.
anything and everything that you can possibly think of. They have the data and it's conclusive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but that's not the problem. The problem is no one's doing anything about it at this point. No one is actually addressing it with policy. No one is actually introducing things that will either penalize people for doing this stuff to Black people or compensate Black people for what's been stolen. Nothing is being done. And while nothing is being done, to add insult to injury, they're actually requesting that we start helping out other people and start pushing other legislative agendas.
We don't have anything.
And we ain't got shit.